I thought desire died with my wife. But then she moved into my basement. Young. Bold. Smiling like she had no business being that beautiful around a man like me. I didn't know she already had a plan, and I was at the center of it. Hey everyone, if you love emotional, dramatic stories like this, make sure to turn on notifications, subscribe, and help us grow this channel. Your support helps bring more unforgettable stories to life. Let's get into it. If someone told me I'd let a 23-year-old stranger into my house 2 years after burying my wife, I'd have laughed in their face. But she didn't just move in, she took over the silence I'd been drowning in. And I never saw her coming. Then. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, and share if you enjoy slow burn, emotional drama. Your support keeps these stories alive. Now, let's begin. I wasn't looking to rent the basement. I wasn't looking for anything, really. For the last 2 years, life had just been quieter. After Emily passed, I buried myself in projects that never needed finishing. Painted the kitchen 3 times. Rewired lights that already worked. Rebuilt a deck I never sat on. I told myself the basement was just another project, turn it into a livable space, rent it out, collect a little side income. Keep the silence from swallowing me whole. But I wasn't expecting her. She showed up on a Tuesday afternoon in early May. The sun was warm, trees leafing out. I was on the porch with a cup of coffee and a dull ache in my knee when a beat-up silver Civic pulled into the driveway. Out stepped a girl, no, a young woman, with long dark hair, black leggings, and a hoodie tied around her waist like she hadn't even checked the weather. Her eyes were sharp, scanning everything like she already owned it. "You must be Mr. Warren," she said, walking up the path without hesitation. "Just Warren's fine," I replied, standing up. "You're here about the basement?" She smiled like she already knew the answer. "Yeah. Ava. Ava." The name didn't fit in my mouth. Too soft for someone who looked like she could dismantle a man with a glance. We shook hands. Her grip was firm. I showed her the place, separate entrance, decent-sized bedroom, kitchenette, fresh carpet. She ran her hand along the kitchen counter like she was checking for dust, even though I'd scrubbed the place spotless the night before. "It's quiet," she said. "Very. Good. I like quiet." She didn't ask many questions. Didn't haggle about the rent. Just looked around, nodded once, and said, "I'll take it." That was it. No nonsense. No fumbling. Just confidence. And something else, something I couldn't quite name then. Not interest. Not flirtation. Just attention. Like I was a chapter she'd read before but wanted to reread slowly. She moved in 3 days later. At first, it was nothing. A pair of shoes by the back door. The low thump of music through the floorboards. Her shadow crossing the backyard when she studied on the lawn. I rarely saw her, and when I did, she was polite, respectful, unobtrusive. But there was this one night. I'd fallen asleep in my recliner with the TV on, some documentary I didn't care about. Woke up past midnight to the sound of soft footsteps. Thought maybe I was dreaming. Then came a knock. Soft. Not urgent. I opened the front door to find her standing there, barefoot, hair damp, wearing an oversized sweatshirt and nothing else visible underneath. "Sorry to bother you," she said. "I think the water heater's acting up again." She didn't seem sorry. I followed her down to the basement, careful not to let my eyes wander, careful not to notice the pale curve of her thigh or the smell of shampoo that clung to her. I crouched by the heater, tinkered with the pilot light, said something about old pipes and sediment. She stood behind me the whole time. Watching. "You okay down here otherwise?" I asked when I stood up. She shrugged, then smiled, soft, intimate, like we shared a secret. "It's nice having someone upstairs," she said. "Feels safe." I didn't know what to say to that. I wasn't used to being seen as anything anymore. Let alone someone safe. "I'll look into a full replacement if it keeps happening," I muttered. "Thanks, Warren." The way she said my name, it lingered. I went back upstairs that night and didn't sleep for hours. My skin buzzed like I'd been near electricity. I told myself it was nothing. She was young, friendly, needed a place to stay. I was older, widowed, vulnerable in ways I didn't like admitting. But every time I heard her laugh through the floor, or smelled something sweet baking in her oven, or caught her gaze across the yard, it pulled something awake in me. Something I thought had gone to the grave with Emily. Desire. It scared me. She didn't act like it was strange. She leaned into it, slowly, carefully. Like she knew just how far to press without making me bolt. Like she'd done this before. But the truth? I didn't know her at all. And I had no idea she already knew me. I'd forgotten what it felt like to anticipate someone. The way you start noticing the little things, the echo of footsteps, the hum of the shower, a light flicking on at midnight. Every movement downstairs became a quiet presence in my mind. Ava wasn't loud, but she wasn't invisible either. She left a trail. A coffee cup on the kitchen counter when she knew I'd be up early. A folded blanket left just so on the porch swing. A single sunflower in a mason jar by the mailbox. None of it was intrusive. If anything, it was thoughtful. But I started to feel watched. Not in an uncomfortable way. In a way that made my skin tighten. Like I was being studied. Measured. Understood. And I hadn't been seen in a long time. One morning, I found her in the backyard, lying in the grass, her nursing textbook open on her stomach and earbuds in her ears. Her t-shirt had ridden up just slightly, revealing a sliver of smooth, tan skin. I turned away, ashamed of the flicker that stirred in my gut. She was a tenant. A kid. Half my age. I went back inside and shut the door harder than I meant to. A few minutes later, there was a knock. She stood there, barefoot again, holding a mug. "Coffee?" she offered, that half-smile tugging at her lips. I made too much. I hesitated. Then took it. "Thanks," I said, unsure where to look. Her eyes lingered on mine. "You okay?" I nodded. "Just not used to company." "Well, I'm not really company," she said with a small shrug. "I'm here." That was the first time I felt it fully, that slow, deliberate unraveling. She didn't need to touch me to make it feel like she had. Her presence was pressureless, but constant. She was dripping water on stone. Later that week, I ran into her in town. I didn't even know she worked at the small cafe on the corner. She was in scrubs, her hair tied up messily, a notepad in one hand and a pitcher of water in the other. "Oh hey, Warren," she said like it was the most natural thing in the world. "You work here?" I asked, surprised. 2 days a week. Pays what nursing school doesn't. I sat down, ordered something I didn't really want, and she kept refilling my coffee even when I hadn't touched it. Her coworkers looked at her funny when she lingered too long by my table. One of them, a younger guy with a lip ring, raised an eyebrow and smirked. She didn't care. "You always sit that straight?" she asked suddenly, leaning her elbows on the table. I blinked. "What do you mean?" "You've got that ex-military posture. Back straight. Shoulders tight. Always scanning." I stared at her. "I was Army. A long time ago." "I know," she said. I froze. "How?" She stood up quickly and smiled. "You told me. First day. You probably forgot." But I hadn't. I never told her that. That night, I searched my own name online for the first time in years. There wasn't much. A small obituary for Emily. A donation page I'd shut down. A local news article from over a decade ago, back when I did a few search and rescue missions in state. A picture of me shaking hands with a governor I didn't even remember meeting. And then, a Reddit thread, buried deep. Widowers over 40, how do you move on? I'd posted there once, anonymously, 2 years ago. Just a handful of words. She was the only one who ever saw me. I don't think I want to be seen again. No comments. No replies. But I read that line again, and something twisted in my chest. Because now, I wasn't so sure it was true anymore. I caught her one evening standing in the hallway just outside the basement door, her hand resting on the wall, her head tilted toward the ceiling. Listening. I stood silently in the kitchen, watching her through the crack in the door. She didn't know I was there. And for a second, I thought, I don't know what I thought. That maybe I should speak. Or turn away. Or ask what the hell she was doing. But I didn't do any of that. I just stood there, watching her listen. Like I was the one under glass now. The next morning, she left a note with the rent. Just a post-it, stuck to the envelope. Thanks for being a quiet upstairs neighbor, smiley face, eh? I stared at it longer than I should have. It was a simple thing, but everything about Ava felt calculated, casually calculated. Like she knew when to smile, when to disappear, and when to act like she wasn't doing either one on purpose. I wasn't naive. I'd worked recon. I'd interrogated men with eyes darker than hers. But what made Ava different was how warm her manipulation felt. There was no malice in her moves. Just intention. I was no longer certain who was watching whom. That night, I found her on the porch swing again, blanket wrapped around her legs, a book open in her lap and a steaming cup of tea in her hands. You're becoming a routine, I said, standing in the doorway. She looked up, smiling. That's the goal. Routine? She nodded. Comfort. Predictability. People feel safe when they know what to expect. I raised an eyebrow. Is that what they're teaching in nursing school now? She shrugged, sipped her tea. You'd be surprised. There was a beat of silence. Then she patted the space beside her on the swing. Come sit. I hesitated. Then walked over and sat, careful to leave a polite space between us. We watched the stars in silence for a while before she spoke. My dad died when I was 14. Heart attack. In the kitchen. I found him. Her voice was even, practiced. I didn't cry at the funeral. My mom did. She cried for both of us, I guess. I didn't say anything. Ava's gaze stayed fixed ahead, but her tone lowered. He was the only one who ever noticed when I left a room. I turned to look at her. What do you mean? She smiled faintly, but it didn't reach her eyes. You know that feeling when someone's absence matters? Yeah, I said quietly. I do. I think I got addicted to that feeling. Being needed. Being missed. Most people just float by. You know? I nodded. But not you. That hung in the air between us. I should have gone inside. I should have set a boundary. But I didn't. Because part of me wanted to hear more. Not just about her, but about what she wanted me to believe. She was telling a story, and I knew better than to take it at face value. But I wanted to believe her. Even though something didn't sit right. She said she was from out of state. But I'd seen her check the mailbox before I even gave her a key. She claimed she was in her final year of nursing school, but her textbooks still had shrink wrap on them. And there was something in the way she lingered by the photographs in the hallway, my wedding picture, the framed memory of a life I barely talked about anymore. Like she knew exactly what each one meant. One evening, I passed by the basement door and saw it slightly ajar. I wasn't trying to spy. But I paused. Her voice filtered up, soft, amused. Mitchum. Yeah. No. I'm still here. Mitchum. He doesn't ask questions. Quiet. Routine. Kinda sad, actually. But yeah, it's working. Then silence. The next thing I heard was her laughing. And then the door creaked shut. The next day, she brought up Emily for the first time. We were both in the kitchen, she'd come up to borrow ice, she said. She held the tray of cubes, tapping her nails against the edge. I saw the photo, she said casually. Your wife? I looked up, caught off guard. Yes. She was beautiful. She was, I said. Then added, still is, in my head. Ava nodded slowly. I hope someone talks about me like that one day. She didn't blink when she said it. Didn't fidget or look away. Just studied me like she was adding a new piece to her puzzle. You miss her? She asked. Every day. And still, she said, tilting her head, you let me move in. A stranger. I needed the rent, I said too quickly. Sure, she murmured. Then turned and walked away. That night, I dreamed of footsteps in the hallway. Not Ava's. Emily's. I woke up in a sweat, the house too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes your mind turn on itself. I walked downstairs. Her door was cracked open. And inside, Ava was awake, sitting on the floor with her back to the bed. Facing a wall of old newspaper clippings. My clippings. She didn't see me. But I saw the red pen. I saw my name circled. And I saw Emily's obituary, pinned above it. I waited until morning. I could have knocked on her door right then, demanded answers, snatched those clippings off the wall with shaking hands. But I didn't. I went back to bed and lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to the silence like it was speaking a language I hadn't heard in years. She wanted me to find that wall. She left the door cracked. She didn't hide a thing. And I did. So the real question wasn't what she was hiding, it was why she wanted me to look. Around 9 a.m., I found her in the kitchen. Same oversized t-shirt. Barefoot again. Calm as a Sunday morning. Morning, she said, like nothing had happened. I watched her pour coffee, humming under her breath. She didn't flinch when I stepped closer, didn't even glance my way when I asked. Why do you have Emily's obituary in your room? She paused, cup in midair. Then, slowly, she set it down. I was wondering when you'd ask. My stomach tightened. She turned, resting her back against the counter, eyes on mine, no panic, no excuses. Just, calm. Because I knew who you were before I moved in. I kept my voice level. You didn't mention that in your application. No, she said. I didn't. She walked past me and sat at the table, crossing one leg over the other, hands folded neatly. You were part of a rescue unit that pulled my cousin out of that landslide in Montana. It made the local news. You carried her 2 miles with a broken ankle. She never forgot your name. Montana? I frowned. That was over a decade ago. I was 12, she said. She told the story at every Thanksgiving. You moved here just for that? She gave a tiny laugh. No. I moved here for nursing school. You just happened to be here. Widowed. Renting a room. Looking like you'd forgotten how to breathe. I didn't sit. You've been watching me. Yes, she said without shame. But not in the way you think. Not like a stalker. Then what is this, Ava? She tilted her head, the way she always did when she was about to say something dangerous. This is connection. You looked like someone who needed to be seen. And I wanted to be the one who did it. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to feel betrayed. But all I felt was unsteady. Because the part of me that should have thrown her out was silent. And the part of me that had been asleep for 2 years, that part was wide awake. She stood slowly and walked to me. I don't lie, Warren, she said, voice quiet. I just don't tell everything all at once. Why not? Because you'd run. I didn't move. Not when she stepped closer. Not when her hand grazed my wrist. Not when she said the thing I wasn't ready to hear. I think you were meant to be alone long enough to meet me. I spent the rest of the day working outside. Chopping what I didn't need, fixing things that weren't broken. I tried to shake her voice from my head, but it stayed, smooth, unhurried, calm in all the wrong places. She hadn't denied the clippings. She'd practically offered them. Like bait. But for what? I came inside just after sunset and found a plate covered in foil on the counter. You looked like you skipped lunch. Another note. Another move. That night, I knocked on her door. She opened it immediately, like she'd been standing just on the other side. I need to know what you want from me, I said. Her expression didn't change. I want you to feel again. That's not your job. She stepped forward, close enough to smell the faint trace of lavender. No. But maybe it's my purpose. She didn't kiss me. She didn't touch me. She didn't have to. She left the door open after I walked away. And I spent that night knowing full well that everything about her was deliberate. But still. I didn't sleep. Because for the first time in years, I didn't want to be alone. And that terrified me more than she did. I didn't see her for 2 days. Not in the kitchen. Not on the porch. Not even the creak of the basement stairs. Ava vanished into her corner of the house like she'd never been there at all. But her presence lingered. In the scent of lavender near the hallway. In the used teacup left drying by the sink. In the notes she didn't leave. She wanted me to notice her absence. And I did. She was right about one thing, I'd forgotten how to breathe, until she made me aware of my own pulse again. And now she was gone silent. Watching from the shadows of my own damn house. Like a game of chess, and she'd made her move. Now she was waiting for mine. That's when Nicole showed up. My late wife's sister. The last real connection I had to Emily's family, and one I hadn't expected to see on my porch ever again. She knocked 3 times. I opened the door still in work boots and an old shirt, saw her standing there with her usual controlled expression. Like always, she looked like she'd been dealing with life better than the rest of us. Hey, she said, holding up a bag of groceries. You looked a little skinny in your last email. I didn't send you a picture. You don't have to. I know you. We ate on the back porch. It was nice. Familiar. The kind of comfort only someone who remembers your wife's laugh can bring. But halfway through her whine, she asked the question I knew was coming. So, who's the girl? I blinked. What? She gestured toward the basement door. Your tenant. I saw her come in last week. She's young. I didn't answer. Nicole tilted her head. You know, Warren, I don't judge. But there's something off about her. I looked up. She stared at Emily's picture when she walked by. Like she knew her. My throat tightened. She doesn't, I said. She just saw it in the hallway. Nicole didn't seem convinced. People who linger by the dead usually have something to gain from the silence they leave behind. I hated how much that sentence got under my skin. Later that night, I knocked on Ava's door. This time, she didn't open it right away. When she finally did, she looked different. No t-shirt. No bare feet. She wore a dress. Soft blue. Makeup on. Like she'd been waiting to be seen, really seen. "You had a visitor," she said. "Nicole. She didn't like me. She doesn't like anyone." "Fair," Ava said with a slight smile. "But she's right." I paused. "About what?" "I do know Emily." The silence stretched long between us. "I saw her once," Ava said. "At a hospital, years ago. I was volunteering. She dropped off a meal for a patient on the 4th floor. I remember her smile." "That's not knowing her," I said. "No," Ava agreed. "But I knew of her. I followed her after that." My skin prickled. "Why?" "Because she was kind to a man nobody else talked to. And that stuck with me. I was 17. Lost. Angry. Looking for something that felt good. Emily was good. I should have felt invaded. Instead, I felt hollow. Because for a moment, I imagined Emily and Ava crossing paths again and again. One, living in light. The other, watching from shadow. And now Emily was gone. And Ava had found her way here. To me. "I wanted to be near what she left behind," Ava whispered. "And then I met you. And you were nothing like I expected." "What did you expect?" She stepped forward. "A man too broken to stand." Her hand found my chest. "But you were still breathing." I didn't stop her when she leaned in. I didn't stop myself. It wasn't a kiss. It was something quieter. Her forehead touched mine. And for a few long seconds, we just stood there, two people who should have never been in the same room, yet somehow were. And in that stillness, she said it. "I don't need to replace her, Warren. I know. But I will become unforgettable." 2 weeks passed. 2 weeks of late-night coffee and quiet walks. 2 weeks of Ava knowing exactly when to step in and when to vanish. She never pushed. Never begged. She simply made herself necessary. She filled the house without forcing it. Laughed like Emily used to. Moved like she belonged. And somehow, I let her. Nicole called once. Said she couldn't shake the feeling something was off. That Ava had hollow eyes behind a bright smile. I almost laughed. Because by then, Ava was already sleeping upstairs. Not in my bed, but near it. Like she was waiting for me to ask. And still, she never touched me. Not in that way. Not yet. She didn't need to. She already had me, without it. One night, I found her sitting in Emily's old reading chair, barefoot, curled up with a book Emily used to love. The sight of her there pulled something loose in my chest. "You shouldn't be in that chair," I said. She looked up, quiet. "Do you want me to move?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because she looked like a ghost I never invited in, but didn't want to leave. She patted the empty space beside her. And for reasons I'll never fully understand. I sat. That was the first night she told me her real story. About the man she used to love, an older man, like me. About how he broke her. About how she decided no one would ever leave her feeling small again. "So I learned to be what people need," she said. "Some need sweetness. Some need silence. Some just want to feel seen." "And me?" I asked. She looked at me with eyes too calm for 23. "You needed to remember you're still alive." The next morning, she was gone. No note. No suitcase. No trace. Her room was empty except for the wall, now scrubbed bare. No clippings. No photographs. Just blank paint. Like she'd never been there. Just like Emily. Just like a storm. Nicole came by a week later. She asked if Ava had left on bad terms. I said no. I said she left the same way she came, on her own. Nicole didn't believe me. But I didn't care. Because sometimes the lie is easier than the truth. That I let a stranger inside my grief, and she took something I didn't know I still had. And maybe I was glad she did. Months passed. I found a postcard in my mailbox. No return address. Just 2 words. Unforgettable, right? And I stood there, alone in the driveway, knowing she'd always meant to leave. That this, whatever we were, wasn't love. They want to be remembered. And Ava? She got exactly what she came for. The end.